Welcome to How to Split a Toaster, a divorce podcast about saving your relationships from True Story FM. Today, your toaster's expecting it's just desserts.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Seth Nelson, and I'm here with, as always, with my good friend Pete Wright. Today is Alimony Day. We're going to poke away at the intricacies of alimony, how recent reforms have reshaped the landscape in Florida, and what these changes mean for individuals facing divorce.
Now, I know how excited you get because this is a topic that does naturally imply a spreadsheet.
I know. It's awesome.
Yeah, set us up because I know that when you're facing divorce, there are a lot of things that involve numbers, a lot of categories that involve payments back and forth. Set us up. How do you talk about alimony with your soon-to-be divorcing client?
First off, let's remember what alimony is. Alimony is a payment from one spouse to the other, either during the pendency of divorce, check your local jurisdiction, that might be temporary alimony, or after your divorce, that's called alimony. Different states call it different things. In Florida, you could have rehabilitative alimony, that is payment for like going back to school or getting certificates, improving your educational standing. You could have temporary, like I said, during the pendency of the case. You can have bridge the gap, which is just a couple years to get back on your feet. That would be a form. There would be durational for a set period of time. There used to be something called permanent in Florida, which under the new statute, that is no longer applicable if you're currently going through a divorce or if there's a modification. So, and that law on the modification is getting kind of teased out as we speak. So you have to understand what it is. Then you must understand what it's for. So, quiz time, Pete.
Oof.
I know. You didn't expect it.
I didn't. I thought I was off the hook this time.
Yep. Nope. Unannounced pop quiz. Alimony, married for 20 years. They have 2 kids, both been in private school the entire time. Is the alimony payment supposed to go to help pay for that private school tuition?
No, I do know this one. No, it's not.
Why not?
It is not, because that would be child support.
It would fall under payments for children. That's not what Florida alimony law teaches us. So you have to talk about what is this for. Now, what happens if you have a 529 plan that's been funded throughout the marriage and you want to continue funding that, and that's been part of your lifestyle? And also, every month we're very fortunate. We make a lot of money, but we save $10,000 as a couple. And the receiving spouse, we'll say the wife, says, I want to contribute to half the 529 plans because that's what we spend our money on. I know it's for the kids, but it's for their college. And I should be able to do that with my money. And we've been doing this the whole time. We're very sound financially. I also want to save $5,000 a month because I don't want to live hand to mouth and, not be able to save. We're savers. We've done it our whole life. Can she get payment of alimony for the $5,000 savings and for paying her half of the 529 plan?
God, this seems like such a trick. The 529 seems to be an investment vehicle, and that, it sounds like, would not be. But the way your arms are crossed and I'm reading your face, it seems like I'm either, whatever I say, I'm wrong. I'm going to say no.
Walk like an Egyptian.
Yeah, right.
Does that change your answer?
Nice throwback. I think the answer is no. I don't know that I could justify that.
Well, do you think it's reasonable if one spouse is a collective, like they're not arguing about money. They're saying, look, we've always saved. The only thing we're going to court to argue about is I want to save. I'll give you the 529 plan. It's a payment for a child. The answer is no. Okay. But now we got the savings account. Judge, we always saved. Why shouldn't he have to pay me the standard of living? Because we're talking about standard of living. Why shouldn't I be allowed to save money? Isn't that sound fiscal responsibility?
Yes, but is alimony supposed to be used to maintain standard of living?
That's part of it.
I'm conflicted because what you have told me for years is to expect standard of living to change when a divorce happens.
Fair point. Judge, we typically save $5,000, $10,000. I get that standard of living change. I'm not going to save half, 5. I want to save 3. I'll drop it by $2,000. Standard of living changes. We have 2 houses. There's less money. But when you look at it, he can still pay me 3 to my savings account. Good point, counsel.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll take it. You've swayed me. Yes, that can be part of alimony.
Answer is no. So in Florida, the answer is no. There's not a savings component. Okay. So in Florida, this is what it pays for. And just very quick, like I said, rehabilitative alimony, you got to have a plan to get your education, and it can possibly pay for that. Otherwise, it is your need and his ability to pay. That's the starting point. Okay. People keep messing this up in the new law in Florida. They think it is 35% of the difference of their net incomes.
Okay.
35% the difference of their net incomes.
And that's not true with the new law?
That's the new law, but it's the lesser of 35% the difference of their net incomes or someone's need and the other person's ability to pay. So, trusty calculator. Here we go.
Bring it.
For the visual, let's say the net income of one party is I'm going to make it $7,500.
Okay. Net income, one party, $7,500.
Say the husband. The wife, net income, $2,500.
Okay.
Minus $2,500 from the 75. Difference is $5,000. You agree with me?
Yeah. That's
the difference in their net incomes, $5,000.
Yes.
The most the wife can receive, point times 0.35, 35%, $1,750.
Okay.
In that math. So what a lot of lawyers do, they just look at the net incomes and do the math. But you got to first look at the need. If she doesn't need the $1,750 on the calculator, and she only needs $500 because that was their standard of living, she only gets $500.
She only gets $500.
That's right.
And that case is made by whom? Because it seems like she's going to say, "Oh, I need all $1,750."
That's right. That's right. So the case to be made is, what is her need? And on this hypothetical, I'm assuming he has the ability to pay.
Yes. Let's assume that for now.
So how do we prove that? So this is where people really need to start taking notes, not while you're driving, please. You need to really understand your expenses. This is all about expenses when we're talking about need. Yes, it's about income. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but you've got to know where your money's going out. Common things people miss. They're on their spouse's health insurance through their employer, their spouse's employer, and it's going to change.
Significant.
Big one. Immediately, if you are not on the health insurance plan, please go get a quote for your health insurance. Go talk to your HR department. If you are not employed and seeking employment, be getting those numbers. If you're not employed, go out to the marketplace. Look at those numbers. Okay.
Okay.
Big one. Any expense that is joint, car insurance, go get quotes for your car.
Cell phones.
Life insurance should be in your own name. Make sure that you have that term policy in place. Talk to your financial planners about that. Look if you have any membership dues, because what happens is you'll forget that, oh yeah, we've been members at Crunch forever. I just don't really go. Crunch Fitness. And so, what is that? It's on their, so you got to look at their credit card statements, your credit card statements.
Because now I want to get that divorce bod in play. So I've got to start going to Crunch, and I don't want to show up at the door and realize I'm not actually a member.
Exactly. It's called the revenge bod, actually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's one of the key things you can start doing is really identifying where the money is going out.
Okay.
The other thing to think about is what, if any, expenses are you going to have that you don't currently have? Think of this. You're moving from a house to a condo. You now have condo association dues, right? These are the things that creep up. And maybe it's $350 a quarter, but if you're only getting $1,750 a month, that's going to add up.
Yeah, right.
So you really got to understand where your money is going.
Assuming, again, we're still on the ability to pay part, right? He can pay. He's got the money to pay. Things like your membership to Crunch Fitness are okay to ask for alimony for?
Yeah, that was part of your standard of living.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Now, you're going to get a decrease on some, right?
Yeah,
but yeah, so hair, nails, grooming, vacations. Yeah, it's all part of the standard of living.
Judge doesn't say, you don't need grooming, get a Flowbee.
Right, exactly. I had a Flowbee case once. I didn't. I just wanted to say that. So, yes, I mean, go down that financial affidavit. And in Florida, there's a short form and a long form. Use the long form. And the reason I tell people to use the long form is it's more detailed. So it's going to trigger your mind to think about some expenses. So I'm picking up on stuff that some are on the financial affidavit, like your health insurance, but people blow by it. They're like, oh, I got it. And they don't really think about it. They're so stressed out, right? So that's what you really, really want to focus in on. And I mean, you can get down to your Apple subscriptions.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
All right.
It's all part of your standard of living. Okay. Now, remember, the best way to do this is if you want to download all your transactions into a QuickBooks or into any of those apps that you can do, Monarch Money, whatever, that's a really easy way to get them categorized. And you might have your lawyer go through and say, well, what category is this? And sit down with you. Okay. The other thing you can do in your litigation, and people get all freaked out about this, but you can hire a forensic accountant. And we're going to have a whole show about a forensic accountant.
I just wish that wasn't what they're called.
Because it just sounds negative. Like divorce lawyer is better.
It's much better because you're alive. Forensic implies somebody's dead. That's what CSI taught me.
That's the problem. Okay,
That's
it's
the
not
problem.
the accountant aspect.
No, the accountant's not scary. It's forensic.
It's the forensic part. Okay.
When you're done with this process, you'll be dead. Thank you very much.
Well, some people feel that way. Okay. So let's talk about unanticipated income.
On the person who's targeted to receive
That's
alimony
right.
in this scenario. Okay.
Hypothetically, you are dividing up assets and you have a rental home and your marital home. And you desperately want to keep the home for the kids. He's okay with that. I'm just going to get these arguments out of the way. We're not talking about who's arguing about what. But let's say you get the rental place, the rental house, or the rental condo. If that is kicking off income on a monthly basis, that's going to be part of your income. So in the divorce planning stage, and I don't mean before you're like scheming to plan and take everyone to the cleaners, when you're trying to figure out a settlement, you need to get a financial planner, not a forensic planner. See how I did that for you, Pete?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
A financial planner involved early, because all I can tell you as your lawyer is what I think the law is allowed to get for you. Not that it will happen. Judges get it wrong. You got litigation, the whole thing. Sometimes you'll take less to settle your case and save on fees, but I can tell you what you should get. I can't tell you what it will do for you. In going to a financial planner earlier, in understanding that this is a learned skill about budgeting and spending your money and how to do this. But think about if you get a rental property, the renters are paying the mortgage down. The rent covers the homeowner association. They're responsible for X, Y, and Z, gas, water, utilities, electric, cable. So the renter pays that. Maybe you have someone managing it for you that takes 10%. But at the end of the month, you don't get a lot, but you get, even after you put money aside for maintenance, you end up with, and you put money aside to have your accountant run the taxes at the end of the year. Like all these business expenses are legit. but you end up with like $300 a month. So if you just think about that, right? That is another $3,600 a year that you get. You'll have to pay taxes on it. We'll have to account for the taxes. People forget about that too. If you're getting this income from other sources, not from your alimony. But that might be a good idea. And people will say like, but wait, now I have less alimony. That's true, but your alimony is going to stop. That rental income hopefully won't. Hopefully that property goes up in value. Hopefully you're paying down that mortgage, which is a hidden savings component. You're not allowed to save like we discussed earlier. So there's some things that you can do. Even if you get the house with the mortgage, there's a hidden savings component as you pay down the principal. So this is a time to really get educated on finances and make wise financial decisions about what you're getting and why, and not be so emotional about it.
Okay, can we flip the script now and look at the ability to pay component?
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Perfect.
How does that work?
Almost like I was holding up a sign.
You weren't. Just so you know, you're not holding up a sign. I just knew it was coming.
So it's the same analysis. Where does, in this case, the husband's money go? So far, we'll look at his expenses as well. And we'll look at what his income is. Now, in my hypothetical, he made $7,500 and she made $2,500. Well, if he gives her the house, or I should say it this way, in the divorce and equitable distribution, she receives the house and he goes buys a new house. Well, is he allowed to do a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30 when they typically do 30-year mortgages? Because now it's more expensive and he doesn't have the ability to pay her because his mortgage is higher?
Oh, that's tricky. I'm going to say no.
Well, if I'm the court, I'm looking at that saying, you're inflating that.
Yeah.
And then he's going to say, Judge, we've had the same house for 15 years. It's a 30-year mortgage. I want to be done paying off my mortgage the same way that she was going to be done paying off her mortgage. So that's why I did 15 years. This seems like a very equitable argument, right? And I'm 40. Let's do it this way. I'm 50 years old and I want to be mortgage free at 65, just like her.
See, that sounds perfectly sound.
Right. Right. And you can sound perfectly sound when you're making up the facts on a podcast. Okay.
That's the problem. I can imagine nobody's going to buy that, right? When the point is you're inflating it. Your argument was just entirely based on being able to pay that additional, $1,500 or whatever we came out to. And now you can't.
No, I can't. So you got to look at how people are spending them and if are they changing it, right? And we've had cases in the past, and a lot of people do, that the person receiving money, and this is especially on a modification, the case is over and someone goes to retire and the party says on the other side, but wait, you have all this money and I'm broke. And the person that's been paying for 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, however long, says, I saved for retirement and you didn't. Why do I have to keep paying? And the other side will be like, well, they have all this money. Look, all the money they have in retirement. And when I represent the person that's retired, I'm like, yeah, Judge, we're not hiding the fact. It's right on the financial affidavit. But did they live within their means this entire time? Or did they rack up more debt? What has happened that you're now going to make this guy that's been paying for 30 years continue paying because his former spouse mismanaged her money over the last 30 years? That doesn't seem fair.
No, that doesn't seem fair either.
Right.
Can we do just a brief sidebar to talk about the changes in alimony? Because this is one of the listener questions came in. Is there still such a thing as permanent alimony in Florida? My understanding is no.
No. If you're getting divorced today, there's no longer permanent alimony. So what that question goes to is, how long do you have to pay or how long can you expect to receive?
Okay.
So we always talk about how much for how long. And the how long is in the statute now. So if you think about the length of time on this, and we did a whole podcast right when this came out. So here it is. An award of durational alimony, and that's what it is, may not exceed 50% the length of a short-term marriage. 50% the length of a short-term marriage.
What is a short-term marriage?
Begs the question, up to 10 years.
Okay, so less than 10 years, 5 years of that is going to be, or have, if it's 10 years, you're going to get 5 years of alimony.
If it's 8 years, you're going to get 4.
Yeah, 4. Got it.
60% the length of a moderate term marriage.
Up to what, 19?
10 to 20.
20, okay.
Okay.
All right. Over 20 years?
75% the length of a long-term marriage.
Okay.
But now you're thinking, wait a minute. I've been married for 30 years times 0.75,
Right.
75%.
Right.
I've got to pay for 22 and a half years. You get at what the guys, I'm saying in quotes, the payor.
That's a long time.
You get a get out of jail free card, because here's why. You get to retire. So if you got married at 20 and you're married for 30 years and you're 50 and you're like, seriously, I got to pay for another 22 and a half years. At say 65, there's a mechanism in the statute where you're allowed to retire.
And then you're done. You terminate alimony.
Which, of course, is more attorney's fees. It's more fighting.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, we don't talk about this a lot, but I think it's important. What are ways to save in attorney's fees when dealing with an alimony award? If the goal is not to come back to court, how can you do that with an alimony award? One, you can make it non-modifiable, which means it does not change in amount or duration.
Okay.
Okay. And now people will say, okay, here come the what ifs, Pete. But what happens if I get disabled and I can't work? Okay, well, now we have an exception. Now we have to define what is disabled.
Okay.
Okay. What happens if my former spouse turns around and gets remarried? Because that normally terminates alimony, or is in a supportive relationship, they're living together, that would terminate alimony. Okay, well, there's another exception.
Do you need to take a step back and define supportive relationship for me?
That's exactly right. What is that? Are they living together? Are they paying each other bills? And this is all in the statute and gets argued all the time. Okay. Another way to say is, listen, I don't care if they get remarried. I don't care if they're in a supportive relationship, because my goal is never to come back to court again. So which goal is more important? Right? And if it's not to come back to court again, you can make it non-modifiable. Now, what do I advise my clients who really consider this? One, I want a discount on the term and the amount, because it's not changing. Otherwise, you just get a piece of paper. I could come back later. Something could happen.
Yeah.
Right?
This is I'd like to pay yearly and save 2 months plan.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Now, the other thing you do is you go to your financial planner and say, I'm on the hook for this. It's non-modifiable. It's non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. I'm going to owe it. I'm going to have to pay it. How can I set something up where it just happens automatically and I never see it? I don't think about it. Is it from my income? Is it from my investments? Can I put it in another account making 5%? So at least at the end, I'm going to have something left. You know, there's different ways to do that. Another way to do it is just pay it all up front, lump sum alimony. It's a form of payment. It's not a type of alimony. You're going to have to pay $1,750 in our hypothetical, right? 5 years, right? $105,000.
Okay.
Now, sounds like a lot of money, because it is a lot of money. It's 6 figures. However, if you're dividing up a brokerage account in a house, maybe you just give that, you divide it all evenly, and out of your half, you give $105,000 over.
Okay. Because you keep coming back to sound financial advice, at what point is giving away that $105,000 in the lump sum less sound financial advice than just paying that $1,750 a month and earning interest on what's left before you have to give it away?
Well, if you were just doing the math, you would say pay over time.
Yeah.
If we say $105,000, but we're paying up front and we want a discount for the time value of money,
then you want to make sure you're making a bigger discount than you would have made in appreciation over time.
Right. Potentially. Right. But here's the flaw. It's a great question, but here's the flaw in the analysis. You're assuming that that's just going to continue for 5 years and no one's going to come back to court.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So let's take that same payment for 10 years. So now it's $210,000. And you call a lawyer 5 years in when you got 105 left. And I say, all right, well, I need a 10 grand retainer. And you're like, well, hold on a second. I got $105,000 left to pay over 5 years at $1,750 a month, which costs me $21,000 a year. And I'm telling you, I'm in a financial straits where I can't pay that. And now lawyer who's on my side is asking me for 10 grand, which is 6 months of payments.
Right.
You got to think it through. I will tell you this. Every single long-term alimony payor that I have ever represented, and I'm talking 20, 30-year guys that were paying, because I'm saying guys because back 20, 30 years ago, those were the payors. Okay. They all say the same thing when I resolve the case finally and they have no more payments. I feel like I'm finally divorced. That's just an emotional aspect to it. It's not a legal one. It's an emotional one. Now, when I've represented the person receiving and I tell them, I think we should settle your case, get a financial planner, see where you are. Let's see if we can get one last payment lump sum. You know what they have told me? I'm glad I don't have to rely on him for money anymore. I was always worried he wasn't going to pay. And I would say, he didn't miss a payment for 27 years. I know. But every month I was worried because of what he said and what he did and what he said to the kids and what we said when we were celebrating our grandchild's second birthday, what I heard him say.
That's really interesting. And that's where I was going when you started this conversation. Like that lump sum can represent an emotional weight at any cost is relieved.
Yeah. And what happens is people will do it and then they'll be like, oh, paid too much. And what happens is whenever anyone that does a deal in divorce has buyer's remorse, because you look at naturally as humans what you gave up. Like, I could have fought for more money. I could have fought for more time. I should have gotten the beach house, not the lake house, whatever your X and Y you want to plug in that's important to you. But what you forget about is the emotional time and talking to your lawyers and being frustrated with the court system. And it's horrible.
It never goes away at that rate.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So
okay.
It's not an easy topic. It's scary.
Yeah.
Money is security.
For sure. We've got a couple of other questions that have floated in. Can I ask you? I think you've already addressed one of them. Can I get my alimony judgment changed after the divorce?
It depends on the type of alimony, but if you do the non-modifiable, no, right? But if there's exceptions, but yeah, if alimony in Florida, generally speaking, check your local jurisdiction, is always modifiable.
Okay.
Always, but it's expensive.
I lost my job recently, but my ex still wants alimony. What rights do I have to stop paying her until I find a new job? Do I have to go in front of a judge first?
The answer is yes, you have to go in front of a judge unless she will stipulate to an abatement, a pause of the alimony, right?
Okay. That just means if she's fine, waive it off for a certain period. You don't have to, everybody agrees. You don't have to go in front of a judge.
That's right. You want to get a stipulation. You want it signed by the court. So it's a court order. So everybody's clear. And if you get a new lawyer, there's no misunderstandings. It's all in the court file. But otherwise, yeah, if you lose your job, and in Florida, it has to be like, you can't lose your job for a week and terminate it. Like, it's supposed to be for 6 months, but you want to get into court and file and be like, hey, here's the problem. I'm out here applying for jobs every day and I'm not getting anywhere. And here's why. Right. And so I need to do it. Now they're going to look at your total assets. If you've got 10 million in the bank, making 5%, even though you're unemployed,
you're okay.
You might still be making that $1,750 a month payment.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Fair. How about this? My wife is initiating divorce, married 22 years. She's a physician with a $630K income. My income's about $200K. One adult child, no child support issues. Is it reasonable to ask for alimony? Would I get it?
Okay. So here is what we would define as high income earners. Some people listening to this show are going to be like, seriously, you've got $200,000 of income? No, you don't need alimony. That's a judgment call. You are making a judgment on lowering his standard of living, is my assumption, to live off of 200 grand, when before combined, they were living off of 830.
Yeah. Okay.
Which we can laugh about. I gotta,
or I'd cry.
Right. But so some people, and I've been where people were making millions and someone had 200,000. Yeah. The person getting 200,000, if you did let's just pretend
35%.
Right. Let's do 630 minus 200, Pete, which is 430. Let's pretend these are net numbers. This is after taxes, which means the 630 was really making like 1.2.
1.2. Right? Sure. Right.
And the 200 was making 400 roughly. But you times 0.35, 150. Right?
Okay.
So 150.5. So if you take 630,000, I'm just doing the math again, minus 200,000, 430,000 times 0.35, alimony of $150,000, $500 a year. That's the difference, which you divide that by 12. It's $12,541 a month in alimony.
Okay.
I've had cases where people have received and paid more than that number, which means they were high net worth or high earners. Okay.
And I get that what we're talking about is, divorce relativism, right? Like, and it's certainly not our place to judge.
If you are divorcing Jeff Bezos and you earn $200,000 a year and you were married to him for 10 years and there's no prenup because he's an idiot. Okay. Do you think that you don't deserve a higher standard of living based on the law?
I don't know, man. That's a hard one to navigate. I get it. I really do. I get it.
But that's a judgment that you're saying. It is a judgment. Yeah. How much is enough? Because let me tell you, someone that's getting $1,000 a month and looks at someone that and they're making 20 grand a year, and they look at someone that makes 100 grand a year and being like, really? You're getting alimony? You make $100,000 a year?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. No, I absolutely get it. I absolutely get it. Those numbers are just inconceivably large at that point in terms of alimony. So it's hard to imagine the Bezos numbers, but I totally get it.
But I know people that make this kind of money, and the real trick is, are they saving? What are they doing? So the answer to the question, would I get it? I don't know. I don't have enough facts for that. But you get the concepts. Check your local jurisdiction.
All right.
Great questions coming in live.
I know. Love those hot live podcast questions. Appreciate that very, very much. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we're clear. I think we've done alimony officially, and what we have to look forward to next time in our journey through your divorce case is child support.
Yes.
Isn't that fancy? We teed it up just right with alimony today.
We're just going through the piece.
That's it. Going through the piece. Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. We appreciate your time and your attention. On behalf of Seth Nelson, America's favorite divorce attorney, I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you next time right here on How to Split a Toaster, a divorce podcast about saving your relationships.
How to Split a Toaster is part of the True Story FM podcast network, produced by Andy Nelson, music by T. Bless and the Professionals and DB Studios. Seth Nelson is an attorney with NLG Divorce and Family Law with offices in Tampa, Florida. While we may be discussing family law topics, How to Split a Toaster is not intended to, nor is it providing legal advice. Every situation is different. If you have specific questions regarding your situation, please seek your own legal counsel with an attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction. Pete Wright is not an attorney or employee of NLG Divorce and Family Law. Seth Nelson is licensed to practice law in Florida.